If you have ever been in conflict with a dismissive avoidant, there's probably come some point where you're leaning in trying to get feedback, to discuss an issue, to resolve an issue, and they perceive your feedback, your information as criticism, and they begin to shut down. And at some point, you may even come with curiosity, and you may be doing things the right way in a way that is not meant to push them into a trauma response. And they may tell you that they literally don't know what they're thinking or they're feeling. It's not unusual for a DA to say, I don't know what I'm feeling. So how can that be? Let's dig into that. Leslie Wells, connection coach. I help individuals heal, thrive, repair, improve their relationships by looking at things through an attachment lens. It's extremely critical that you understand your own attachment style, wounds, and triggers, and work on your relationship to yourself. And if you really want to improve the negative cycles in your relationship, then you need to be able to understand your partner so that you can show up better for them and not push them into a trauma response. Their triggers are not your responsibility, but guess what? If you're not triggering them all the time, those negative dynamics start to break up and things tend to be a little bit better. They still have to do their own work, but it's really important that you understand their attachment style too. So for those of you who are new here, a dismissive avoidant is someone who grew up with a basically emotional neglect throughout their childhood. Their parents may have shown up and done the fundamental instrumental things to take care of them, meet their physical needs, take them to their soccer games, pack their lunches, run them around, encourage them with their schoolwork, make sure that they did things timely. They may have shown up in that way, but they were a family without feelings. So they were the family that maybe didn't say, I love you. There wasn't a lot of affection, nurturing, helping each other to identify, process emotions. Usually as a child, when they went to their parents for emotional attunement or they were struggling with their emotions, the parent would either criticize them, dismiss them, push that off, or basically they learned at a very young age to stuff and suppress their emotions and distract themselves through play, activities, hobbies. So they grow up with emotional blinders on. The big problem that you're seeing when you're in conflict with a person who is a dismissive avoidant is that they don't know what to do with these emotions because as a child they were not modeled them and they were never shown what to do with them. So if I told you to go out and build me an airplane and you had never been a part of a process to actually build an airplane, that's sort of what like stepping into the emotional arena with them is like. Their lack of emotional intelligence has never been developed. They have never received the skills in order to do that. So these are developmental milestones in childhood that they simply did not get to make those neural connections. So dismissive avoidants usually in adult relationships really struggle with feedback. They take it as criticism. They really struggle in conflict, and they very much struggle to meet the emotional attunement of others. Their emotional intelligence is just not there. They don't pick up on emotional stuff, emotional cues, bids for connection, and they are really not good at showing up emotionally. They also struggle with their own. So if you're in conflict or you're trying to get to understand the inner experience of your dismissive avoidant, know that not only are they just withholding that from you because they struggle with vulnerability, but they also are not in tune usually with their own emotional experience, and they have emotional blinders on, not just to you where they're overwhelmed by your emotions, but they also have their own emotional blinders on to themselves and their own emotions. So in conflict, when they say, I don't know what I'm feeling, they're not lying. Part of that is they've been pushed into a trauma response where at that moment, they are not able to access their emotions. This is called alexithymia, and this is actually a clinical condition, and the word actually means no words for emotions. And so when they go into this state, they truly cannot access their own emotions. It means they're not able to identify them, to experience them, to process them. They literally are just sort of frozen, and their brain is empty when you ask that question. So when they say, I don't know what I'm feeling, that's true. They usually have started maybe in a mild fight response, or maybe they've gone into a flee response, but they end up in sort of this freeze place where they truly do not have the capacity to identify their own emotions, to be able to tell you what's happening for them in their inner experience. So when they shut down and they're unable to reach their emotions or unable to show up and respond, they truly are in a trauma response, and they truly in that moment lack the capacity. So if it feels like they don't care, it's not that they don't care as a person, but in that moment, they do not have the capacity to care. There's no emotionality there. This is like really confusing for somebody who's like a fearful avoidant, who sort of stays in their feelings and can really get to their feelings quickly and break them down and intellectualize their feelings, process them, deal with them. They don't really understand this. This typically will put them into a higher fight response, and then they will get louder, they will get more upset, they will get more frustrated, which then really pushes the dismissive avoidant farther into the alexithymia, where there's no coming back, and in that moment there's absolutely nothing they're going to be able to do. The only thing that you can do for someone who is in this trauma response is give them space. Eventually, when they have time, they will be able to start sort of looking inward and digging into that stuff. But it's important to know for a dismissive avoidant, this is a long-term process. It seems silly, but a lot of times for dismissive avoidants, one of the things that I will do is give them a basic emotion wheel. If you don't have words to put to something, you can't describe it to someone. So not only can they not identify their emotions, not just their emotions, they struggle to identify the very physical sensations in their body, but they don't have the words to give to the emotions if they actually could tap into that anyway. So for them, it's very important a lot of times just to actually learn how to identify and put words to those emotions, because they end up in this state. So you can't really take it personally because that they're unable to show up for your emotions, because the truth is they're unable to access and identify their own emotions. And what's worse for them is they recognize this in those moments in conflict with, especially if they're with a fearful avoidant who is really good at recognizing their emotions, calling them out, putting words to them, and they can really kind of get into this ugly fight response. They recognize their lack of adequacy in this area. Fearful avoidance a lot of times can make dismissive avoidants feel slower, feel like they're not very smart, feel like they're not adequate, because they recognize in those moments, like, I really don't know what I'm feeling. I don't have any words right now. I have no idea how to say the next right thing, how to reassure this person, how to validate them, how to respond to their emotions. Like, they recognize that. And so that makes it even worse, because it's this added pressure in the moment where they're sort of caught off guard and they don't feel like they can make a move. So when a dismissive avoidant tells you, I don't know what I'm feeling, I don't know what I think about that, they're not just blowing smoke up your butt. They truly do not know. That's part of the work of the dismissive avoidant. So hope that clears that up a little bit for you and gives you a little bit more of an understanding.